Why do I have no data?
Oh
No.
Going live. We should be live. We are live.
Yay.
We are live from sunny. Wow, those lights are bright. Hi, I'm Daniel O'Neill. I'm joined with Thomas Rose, Alec Drinkwater, and Sebastian Blivers. And we are live from the Kuribrohs lair in Bristol. So we were cubing earlier on. And that is available for anybody who wants to catch the cube. I know it was very early for anybody joining us from the US. It's okay,
England, Europe, planet Earth.
But what we're going to be looking at now is we got the top 8 lists from Polish nationals sent into us. So the plan is to look at those. I think it is the largest Polish nationals to date, with over 100 players. So that was really good turnout.
108, yeah.
So we're going to go through those lists and see, particularly the format is slowly shifting. We had a very large... we had a very large kind of gap in deck building at the very start of the format, but we're definitely seeing it to start kind of solidifying at this point.
Yeah, a lot of convergence.
So it'll be interesting to see what people have taken from that. Of course, as it's one of the smaller nationals, there can be some kind of random stuff that wouldn't be as anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also will have more lists coming later this week. I believe we have the winner of the Argentinian nationals who will be sending us his list for Danger Orcust. So a bunch of stuff like that. I think we're good to just get into the lists.
Alec, you just shuffle it a little.
Because yeah.
Hello.
Thank you.
So, what are we kicking off with for Polish nationals?
So we will start with Simon, who sent us in the lists.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's great getting all of this stuff so we can cover it for you. So
yeah, so awesome that he sent it in. Now, he had been talking about the event previous to this with you on the Kuribrohs Facebook, and he had been aiming for, was it Dark Warrior Orcust?
Yeah, we looked through some different builds. There's actually quite a few people, it's been really great seeing all of the people reaching out and talking about, hey, I've got this nationals coming up, what do you think of this list? And there have just been so many cool conversations with people all taking slightly different takes on the deck. And yeah, was this the guy who talked about Warrior Orcust and then changed his mind at the last minute?
Yeah, so he changed his mind to Mind Striker, which is a completely solid choice. I believe this is very close to Marcello's list. Yeah. So we will have links to all of these at the end of the video. I just need to get them typed up. But so he was playing triple ray, triple engage, triple of all of the normals. He was playing the 3 shark cannons, which Marcello had played, and the 2 jamming waves. I don't see anything super out of the ordinary. He was playing the Link 4 Whale Fortress card. I forget the name.
Just in case anyone hasn't seen the Marcello list, it was choosing second, but with no hand traps in the main deck. So just playing 3 copies of Ray and filling up the entire rest of the deck with spell cards. So, the first time that I saw it, I thought it was really wild. It was not something that I was expecting to come across, but it's been cropping up a lot more and seeing some really good success. So there's definitely something to it, for sure.
Yeah. And so Sebastian had played the kind of going second striker as well, but went very different direction.
Yeah, so my deck was built for weekend of release, obviously, where I wasn't really sure what the format would look like, and I made the active decision to play a lot of hand traps. I was playing Gammas and Ash and Impermanence, mainly because I was afraid of Pendulum, actually, of any deck, because that was the one I felt if I went second against that deck with a going first build and wasn't prepared specifically for it, I would never be able to win.
Yeah, and this was specifically 2 weeks after the release of the Endymion deck. So.
Yeah, so it was a very different weekend, and we had no idea. So that was reflected in a lot of my choices. I think Marcello's build was really solid for the meta that he was actually facing, where it was a bit more developed, and we know what the big 3 are, and certainly I don't actually think hand traps are particularly good against any of the top 3 decks at the moment.
I feel like Pendulum really hasn't come out as much as I was expecting it to.
No, Orcust for sure is keeping it very suppressed. It's like in that matchup, you're both playing auto win if you resolve your combo, and Orcust just gets main hand traps and extenders and stuff.
It's kind of interesting how Orcust has gone from this kind of like rogue underdog, where I think it was like super underrepresented after Dusseldorf.
Yeah.
Like it was a deck and it was showing tops, but very few people were playing it, and now it's kind of shifted over where it's like it's still a really strong deck, but it's probably being played by more people than should be playing it almost. Where like I think it's represented more so than something like Striker, and it's probably it's edging more towards being close to like Salamangreat rather than.
Yeah.
I feel like Orcust has gone, like you say, from being initially underplayed to now being very much overrepresented.
Yeah, we saw that Austrian ad specifically, where it was a good 50-odd more represented than any other deck, like beating out Salamangreats by a significant margin.
Really?
Yeah, it was
like
like
a good chunk.
almost double the number of Salamangreats, and then
But it had a terrible conversion rate.
Yeah,
The top gun.
whereas
and
Striker
that's
had a really good conversion rate with really low representation.
Austin has a question about handling preparation for events. We will get onto any questions at the end because I do think that is a great question, and there are a lot of things that we do in preparing. But we'll get through the lists first because that's what we're here to do primarily. So the second deck list in the top 8 was Oliver P. He was playing Salamangreat, 40 cards. List looks relatively standard. He's on Cynet Mining. He is playing Phantasme's main, which is not 100% regular.
I
think in Salamangreats that is very normal. You need to get an edge on the mirror, and it's very good against Striker, which is traditionally not a great matchup. So I think in that matchup you do need to play the Phantasme. And its value just goes up the more hand traps you play.
He's playing 2 Mirage Stalio. What are people's feelings on that?
And he's cut the second rank 4. So he's not playing Baguska for the mirror. So I personally think Baguska is very important. Actually, I personally think Tornado Dragon is very important as the second 4 for Striker specifically, because you just have no reliable ways of getting past the multi-rolls. But yeah, the second rank 4 you choose whether you want to be Striker or the mirror. And then,
I don't know. There's something. Oh, he's not playing any of the Fusion of Fire or the Violet Chimera at all. Anywhere on his list. So no Super Poly or anything, which I think is interesting. I have seen a couple of lists of Salad not doing that, and I think there is some merit in it, in that like Fusion of Fire is not very good in your main deck, because against half your matchups you're just not like using it.
Yeah, the only matchup where it's important is the mirror.
Yeah.
So if you're not expecting mirrors, then I fully support not playing it. Super Poly is just a blowout though in the side.
Yeah.
So take it or leave it.
Tom, you look like you have some input.
No, I've just been spending the last couple of minutes thinking about Phantasme. I'm trying to work out whether we've almost come full circle and to the point where it's now actually starting to get good again.
I think we are.
Like it fell out of favor, and I think quite rightly. And I feel like right now the only thing that's stopping it from being very good is the ability to take it out with choosing your chain links carefully in the Orcust deck. When on your first turn you summon your Dingirsu, you can use the chainlink 1 of Bardiche to destroy the Phantasme, and then the chainlink 2 of Dingirsu, so that Phantasme wouldn't be able to respond to the destruction effect. But other than that, I feel like I've just sort of had an epiphany of like, should I be looking to revisit this Phantasme? And I was just, I was deep in thought, wondering about whether it's come back in now that we are seeing a significant decline in the
pure mine,
the mine burn decks.
Yeah.
Because mine burn was like such a kind of disruptive deck to the format.
Yeah, it was the boogeyman.
Because it came into the format and it also made True Draco become super represented. Both of which Phantasme was really bad against.
But now we see, even on this list, main deck Cosmic Cyclones, a nod to the existence of Mystic Mine. And we're seeing main deck back row removal all throughout the format. So
But I think main deck back row removal is actually just good at the moment as well. You think about just like, especially the 1-for-1 trades with like counter traps and stuff, and obviously like so both Orcust and Salamangreat have their counter trap that they set as a piece of interaction. You can also hit the Orcust field spell, and like banishing that is really big because it means they can't get it back.
Prinz Krustem Kesa. Do we have the deck list for Imran Khan, who came first? Yes.
Yes.
We have every deck list for the top 8 from this event, so we're just gonna go through them one at a time.
So I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I think it's
Genu?
Apologies if we butchered the name. We try our best.
Almost.
He got top 8 with Danger Orcust. So looking at the list,
Double Crescendo seems like the only thing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing impermanence in this list, which is
Impermanence
something that had very much fallen out.
Brigadine is
Yeah.
somewhat questionable, but for the most part, it's fine.
Yeah, like impermanence
is so
helps
much better than every other hand trap, I think, at the moment. If you can afford to play it, just the value of not getting stopped by Cold Buy and Dolphin.
It's also a format where you're generally going to turn 3 or 4. Like,
Sure.
So the like, you know, like Called by the Grave is stronger because if your opponent's deck is affected by it.
Yeah, it is a good piece of interaction as well as being a combo.
And then, like, the other benefit of impermanence specifically in Orcust is that you can use it on Dweller if because Salamangreat sometimes has hands where they can get to Dweller, but in order to do so, they have to give up their counter trap. Yeah. And if they do if they go through like those hands, then they need to.
It's very greedy though.
Yeah, but they do it sometimes.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So
there's more hand traps in the side deck here with 3 Veilers and 3 Lancia.
Yeah.
So the ability to side up to a total of 12 for the mirror.
And 45 cards.
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting because Lancia is still very popular as a side deck card.
Yeah.
But one of the 2 decks it hits is just like completely gone. I don't think we have a single Thunder Dragon in the top 8 here.
Thunder Dragon seems to have absolutely fallen off.
Disappeared.
Like, again, having gone from one of the highest win rate decks, and like arguably it probably should have won a YCS at some point in the previous format. Like just because it was a super strong deck, it had really good combos, and it had Colossus. Like Colossus is a scary card. But yeah, we don't see it here. So it's interesting, I think, that Lancia is still seeing play despite the fact that it's only hitting Orcust. And again, that's because of the big 3. Orcust is the most impactful, and
the one
also
you most need side cards for. I feel.
Yeah.
And like looking through the list, the only deck that isn't siding Lancia is the go second no hand trap Sky Striker deck.
Yeah.
Everything else is on. There's one deck on 2 Lancia, but everything else is on 3 Lancia.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like it is the first 3 cards in the vast majority of sides, just across the board.
And Striker just has mine as its auto win against like those sort of decks anyway, so it's not nearly as important in Striker.
Yeah,
this is the first list we're seeing with Kaijus in it. How are we feeling about Kaijus in the current format?
My thoughts are simply the more Striker there is, the better Kaijus get, and that seems like a really obvious thing. But yeah, it's we've come like the early weeks of the format, people were like hesitant on Striker because obviously it got a hit. I think as people kind of realize that Striker is still just good, and especially with mine, it like gets even better. More people will play Striker, and the Kaijus are kind of like a nod to that.
See, I think...
but it's not really good in any other matchups. I don't even think they're very good against Salamangreat, and they're certainly not good against Orcust.
Okay, so Tafin has corrected me, as he seems to do in our chats. Pure Thunder Dragons won Brazilian Nationals, but they were playing the weird Dark
That's
Neo
about as
format.
relevant as what wins worlds.
Yeah, so kudos for pointing it out, but not a real format, unfortunately.
Sorry.
So interestingly enough, I think Kaijus are actually really poorly positioned at the moment. Because I think this is one of the few, first formats where Sky Strikers have been choosing to go second, even post-side. And especially when you're playing Orcust, they're just going second, letting you do everything, and then playing mine. And assuming that just wins the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really want to side in kaijus when your opponent is choosing whether to go first or second, because you genuinely just don't know whether they're going to choose first or second. Yeah, and if his plan was to choose second when he was choosing, then I can fully support it. But that's a pretty niche.
Yeah,
sort of
I
role.
mean, kaijus are also most impactful when you can end the game the turn you summon kaiju, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
Not as reliable.
Yeah.
But
Like-
then if everyone goes to no hand trap Sky Striker, then it might be a lot better.
But like even like if you think back to like the Dusseldorf list, you were able to play like Trisvana and stuff in Orcust, so you were able to kaiju
Sure.
and then board wipe, and
Yeah.
you don't have as much
Yeah.
ability to do that. You
Yeah.
do have more real cards in your deck. You're
Yeah.
not just all out.
We've had quite a relevant question to this kind of discussion, which is what do we think about Pankratops in this format?
Yeah.
I feel like it's definitely much better positioned than Kaijus.
Yeah, so like again, like mine pushed a lot of things out of the format at the start of it. As we see mine declining, Striker is put in an awkward position at the moment because it's like Striker is kind of represented enough that you get punished if you're playing too many mines and if you're relying on it too heavily. So like we have at least one list here. As we get higher up in the lists, we start seeing Pankratops. Like it's still a very solid side card. It's just a case of it doesn't have like it's still great monster removal, but it's much worse spell and trap removal this format. Whereas in the last format, I think Pankratops was just the premier spell and trap
And it's also another card that's a very risky choice in a format where people could choose second. Hand traps have got the inherent versatility in that even if you go first, they're just an extra negate on top of the board that you can set up naturally.
We will move on to the next list of top 8, which is Jakob Z, who is playing Salamangreat. Interesting with this list is he was playing 2 of the bird.
Foul?
Yeah, the
Two
summon one.
foul,
So yeah, a lot of people have
one
been
strike.
really keen on foul just as like another extender to give you a bit more of doing something. Salamangreat is definitely a deck that could fall into the trap of just not having anything to do, particularly if your first normal summon gets cleared off the board. So having a backup of another play that stops you from being interrupted so easily does seem very sensible.
So back in the day before Signet mining, it was super important just because a lot of just single spot removal that got rid of your normal summon meant that you just had to pass turn. But Signet mining discarding a Salamangreat card, Search Gazelle, Special Gazelle, kind of gets around that. But at the same time, Foul is one of the best cards to hard draw if you're in a format of nothing but Orcust, because it almost guarantees that you can get to Dweller with any other Salamangreat start, regardless of the line you go down. So if you're in the market for making a lot of Dweller, either in the Mirror or in Orcust, then you want to draw Foul, so playing multiple I think is totally fine.
It also has the application of just playing into back row. It kind of forces a lot of them just because you send a Salamangreat card and it your extra Spinny or Foxy or whatever you didn't use to start your combo, and you just lock a back row for free, and it's not even once per turn. So
it's crazy.
If you miss the back row the first time, you can just lock a second back row, and that is actually super super powerful against Striker, against the Mirror, and against Orcust. To be honest, it's just good. It's a good effect. And I think that's super relevant as well.
I mean, this list does seem like it's very much designed to hurt the Mirror. We see Ghost Reaper in the side, which is a card that I'm very not keen on in the current format.
With no relevant targets other than Sun Level.
I mean, you can hit their Nightmare Phoenix.
Big brain.
Hit their Dweller. You have 2 level 4s on board. What are you going to do with those?
Baguska pass.
He's not playing Baguska. He's choosing to play. He's also playing 2 Stalio.
He's maining the super poly targets as well.
It's the first list that we've seen so far in this top cut, which is not playing evenly matched, which is interesting. So evenly is very common this format, and it's something that you should be taking into account. And that would bias me anyway towards playing one of the counter trap decks, being Salamangreat or Orcust, as opposed to Striker.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're on going second Striker, it doesn't matter if your opponent just, like, sets up so that they can evenly you.
Mm-hmm.
Going on to top 4, so the first quarter finalist. Yeah.
It's a semi-final.
So first from the top 4, we have Pure Trickstar, which is pretty cool. We've not seen much of this recently.
So I've been saying in quite a few of our live videos previously is that Trickstar was my second choice deck for the format. So I feel like a little bit validated to see that it certainly has the potential to succeed.
This was one of my first decks that I considered for Spanish Nationals as well.
This deck is like wild.
Really.
Interestingly, it's playing 2 Reincarnation, 2 Heavy Storm Dusters, but no Trap Tricks.
Yeah. 2 Droll and Lockbird.
2 Droll.
2 Ghost Ogres.
2 Korribane.
2 Korribane.
I think 2 Lycurus and 2 Korribane is both fairly standard.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And then 1 Phantasme, 1 DD Crow.
Sure.
1 Mine in the main, which I actually think is really, really solid.
I totally
1 Mine is completely fine.
I think it's really, really good.
Especially when you have to card draw from. So it's playing Pot of Extravagance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Extravagance makes a big difference because an issue you used to have with Desires in the pure deck was you could banish your Lilybell or just banish like all of your reincarnations or something unfortunate like that. Whereas this list looks solid.
I'd assume from the composition, because it's also maining evenly, that it is choosing second, which makes mine even better.
I mean, it's maining triple evenly plus double super poly.
Yeah, one would assume that it is choosing second, and it's hard on that.
Which would explain the...
But then double Heavy Storm Duster.
I mean, if they're not killing you, you still have Duster.
Duster's a good card.
Redundancy for going first, perhaps?
I genuinely think this deck is going first and just happens to have a whole bunch of going second cards because it's Trickstar and needs help going second.
Very likely.
It looks like it can play either way very respectably.
Yeah. The weird thing I've never understood with Extravagance in pure Trickstar is you can't do any of the Trickstar engine. Is that just me being paranoid? Or...
Well, I don't understand. What do you mean you can't do any of the Trickstar engine?
Isn't it you can't add cards from deck to hand?
No, you can't draw.
Okay, ignore me.
So I think it's quite interesting. Again, the list will be available after the stream, so you'll be able to check it out directly. But Trickstar is definitely a deck worth kind of...
We have an interesting point in the chat. Trickstar gets a little bonus at the moment because nobody's going to ask your Candina expecting you to be about to summon a mermaid.
This is true.
Strong.
Great.
I mean, I think people rarely asked Candina to begin with because you hold Ash, like against a pure deck, you hold Ash for reincarnation.
I mean, the last time I was playing Trickstar was like Trickstar Sky Striker format, so we're talking a few formats ago.
True.
But in that format, you always ask the Candina.
You wouldn't even Veiler or Impermanence a Candina.
No. I mean.
Yeah. To be fair, if you knew they were on pure...
You never Veiler Impermanence them anyway. Candina's just immune to hand traps.
If they have the Lycurus.
Yeah, but they always have the
Lycurus.
I've
played enough against Alvin to know that he just always.
How many Lycurus?
Like tree Lycurus always in hand every time.
Tree of Lycurus.
Anyway,
who's our other semi?
The other top 4 player, we have Clemens L. He was playing Salamangreat. We're seeing this list has Fusion of Fire and 1 Super Poly main, with the other Super Poly sided.
Yeah.
I think it's the first one of the Salamangreat lists that we see with Twin Twisters in the main.
Yeah.
I think the others were maining things like Cyclones.
Yeah, one goes is...
Yeah, one of them was on no main deck backer removal, the other one was on 2 Cyclone.
We again see Ashes, Veilers, and Phantasmes all in the main deck. And 2 Impermanents,
He's the first one to be playing Baguska.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, seems like... I think Salamangreat is probably the kind of most standard of the lists because your deck is so many slots are just taken up with your consistency cards.
Yeah.
Then you need your mine redundancy, and then you need your hand traps, and then you have like tree flex slots.
And it's very much a deck that feels correct to build in the most standard way because you absolutely want to keep it as low as possible find your way to the gazelle as soon as possible. So you've got your 6 gazelles, and you need to find one on your first turn.
You've got 9 gazelles now.
Sorry,
with
yeah.
mining,
Yeah, like solid deck. He's playing 2/2/2 of the hand traps that he's bringing in,
like in the side deck.
which is fine. He's playing a lot of 2s.
There
and
are
only
so
3
many 2-ofs
evenly.
in these lists, and I
Yeah.
don't really understand it.
Well, he's got a 14 card side deck, so it's possible that he just did like a deck list error or something, and
Or it's just a rush.
just a rush. Right?
Again, like, you can get away with playing 3s and 2s when you have inbuilt card draw in your deck, because it increases the likelihood of seeing your going first cards when you're going first. But Salamangreat doesn't have the ability to draw non-engine cards.
Yeah, and going second cards, you really do need to be playing in as 3-ofs.
Yeah,
for sure.
If you need to see them on your opponent's first turn, then
yeah,
you got to draw.
So we will carry on. We have the runner-up, Camille K.
Yep.
He was playing Striker.
Yeah. Mind Striker.
Yeah.
More similar
This looks very close to the
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
you were on.
Yeah, this is very similar to my list.
One desires.
Yeah, one desires.
2 cosmic.
2 cosmic. So he's playing cosmic over the 2 MST that I was playing, which I think is
But still 2.
yeah, still 2. I mean, I was playing 2 for space reasons, and I think that's fine. Why the 1 desires over the 3rd impermanence?
First one's pretty good to draw.
I would like
Yeah, I
to
don't
look at Cosmics though, because so like the big advantage of playing MST is it's an activator for Area 0,
Yeah.
and you're very dead with this deck if you don't have Ray
Yeah.
or Mine. But Mine's a lot worse when you don't have Metaverse, because if you're going first, then you just have to have Ray because you can't
Yeah.
get the Mine out.
Yeah. I mean, this is choosing second almost certainly because there's no Metaverse in the main.
Sure.
I think there's a reason I chose MST over Cyclone. But I think Cyclone as a card in a vacuum not in a vacuum in this format, independent of what deck you're playing, is strictly better. But in Striker specifically, MST is better. That's just my own personal opinion. I also really, really hate Desires. I know Marcello was playing it in 3s. But I personally really, really hate Desires at the moment in Striker. Because I think with 1 Pagari, your in-deck resources just matter way
and
more.
we berate you to it.
I mean, you only need to resolve one of the desires, but like the difference between resolving desires and not playing desires is pretty big.
Yeah, but
we can discuss desires in Striker in a little bit, because I think it's a very interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Like the resource game in that deck has changed a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else here that's particularly important to talk about. Were you playing Super Polymerization?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't playing Super Poly.
So this list is playing 2 Super Polymerization sided with a Violet Chimera and a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Violet Chimera seems like a really good call, particularly at smaller nationals. You're more likely to play against a lot of Salamangreat. So it's definitely something that I would consider.
If you're playing in anywhere where card availability is a significant consideration, then a deck like Salamangreat is definitely likely to show up.
Even just like how many large events there are in a season. Like, if you're having regionals with 150 people regularly around you, then you can expect that there are going to be a lot more people on Orcust and Striker relative to the number of Salamangreat players.
Yeah. Because it also, it's a cost thing. If people think they're going to be able to get more use out of their deck, then they're more likely to be willing to just spend the money.
I think that's all we have to say about that list.
The bit that I find interesting is every Striker deck is citing 3 Spear mode. And I cannot for the life of me understand what matchup Spear mode is for.
Pendulum.
Okay.
I cited Spear mode for Spanish Nats for Pendulum, and it was strictly only for Pendulum. Theoretically, you play it against Thunder Dragon, but actually, I figured out later that I didn't even have enough side deck spaces to side in Spear mode against Thunder Dragon, because I was just siding in all my mines, all my metaverses. So
just seems strange. It's not one of the popular decks, and I'd have thought your side slots would be more taxed, but
no.
So finally, we have our winner. So congratulations to Imran Khan. He ended up winning the event with everybody's favorite Danger Orcust. We get so many people talking to us about Danger Orcust, which is really great to see. We're getting to see a lot of how the deck has been shaping. And obviously, we have kind of a vested interest in the performance of the deck
Played
here.
quite a lot of Danger Orcust.
Yeah. All of my regional tops this season are Danger Orcust, even though I've only played it for like 3 events.
Played a lot of Striker.
I played a lot of Striker.
Half of my regional tops this season are with Danger Orcust.
I don't think I've played any regionals with Striker, but that's... So this is like a really interesting list, and we assume that it's somewhat budget constraints because it's 50 cards, but it's only playing 2 Tsuchinoko and 2 Jackalope. It's playing Scrap Recycler. Do you have any thoughts on Scrap Recycler for Danger
I'm
Orcust?
not sure why you choose Scrap Recycler over Mathematician.
It can send a Nightmare. I think it just sends machines.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that
I understand that there mechanically are interactions
Yeah.
where it will send cards that you can't send otherwise.
Yeah.
But would you achieve anything significantly different if you activated Math and just sent your Harp?
Be fair, he is playing triple Nessie, so I'd be surprised if there was anything there. Cost wars.
Well, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Presumably, Nessie is as accessible, or is as difficult to access as Tsuchinoko.
Double Danger Suit.
Yeah.
Yes. Not cheap deck.
Yeah.
So.
And engages.
Okay, yes. Yeah. There's some cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main interesting bit about this
And
list is
supposedly he's
triple
also
recycler.
from a locals in Berlin, so probably not struggling for card availability.
No.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chet.
Interesting. Evenly matched in the main in Orcust. I mean, so we've kind of gotten down to 2 standard sort of builds of Orcust, right? We have like the small Orcust and the big Orcust.
Yep.
From what I was aware, the small Orcust was roughly around 45 cards, right?
Yeah.
And then big is like 60.
Big, you can play like 80 cards.
Yeah.
Sure.
There are.
The only thing holding me back is the rules.
Oh darn. So obviously this is a small Orcust with 5 extra cards. So triple evenly matched, and then like.
Also,
Well, we see a lot of interesting stuff going on here with
one-ish.
like the Scrap Recyclers, which aren't cards that you see a lot of. I know that there was a build that Jeff Jones played to some success in a regional recently.
Actually, Scrap Recycler can send wand if you
Yes.
already have your 2 summons, which is kind of cute.
Yeah, you can send the wand. I'm not sure how sensible of an idea that would be if you don't know that you have a way through a hand trap yet.
Mhm.
But if you had a Mathematician and you send Harp, then if your combo resolves fully, you can just use your Orcust Nightmare to send the wand anyway. Like I'm aware that there are technically cards that you could send with Recycler that you can't get with Mathematician.
Right.
My theory is just that there aren't situations where that is actually relevant.
Yeah, and Matt also gives you access to like the Phantom Knight engine if for some reason you want to go into that. Additionally, this list 1 and 1 of each of the Phantom Knight monsters. That's not exactly what we're normally seeing. We're normally seeing.
I think there's a fairly even split between 1 and 1 or the second copy of Boots. I'm not convinced that either side is significantly better than the other. They aren't cards that you're desperate to open with, but the cost of opening with them is slightly reduced if you play the third. But you're more likely to open with it.
Yeah. So, like, realistically, there's nothing crazy unexpected. In fact...
Go back. Triple Bell.
Yes, there is triple Bell sided in this list.
So, the side deck is crazy because it's triple Phantasme and triple Bell on the side. Along with the kind of mini, like, going second engine that we've seen a little bit. 1 mine, just because you're already playing Terraforming, and 1 jamming waves, because you're already playing Engage. So there's a lot of tech in this side deck.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sold on whether it's better than like the traditional slots of just good hand traps and like Imperial Orders or the blowout cards for the Salad matchup or Pancratops or whatever, but there's a lot of techie stuff there. I assume Bella's for Salad to stop Dweller.
Yeah, I mean, presumably Bell and Phantasmaden are for Salad, assuming that it's going to be very represented at the event.
Yeah.
And to be fair, given the number in Top Cut, probably not a bad decision. I do think Imperial Order is one of those cards that is almost mandatory in Orcust sides because it also outs mine. Like, in addition to being a blowout.
But like,
it also just
Unending
outs
Nightmare here is going to out.
Yeah, but
mine
it's just the fourth one that's also a blowout.
But he has Full House.
Full House.
He has
Full House is sick.
Full House. Yeah.
Full House is one of my favorite cards.
Yeah, I have 2 secret Full Houses that
never resolves.
just keep one to play.
Always negated. Never.
It resolved in Clee format.
It's great. It reads, your opponent makes you draw 1 card with their Dark Bribe. That's all that's ever happened to me. It's
Lightning Rod 1
flip.
MST.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the side deck here is very interesting. Again, deck lists will be up a little while after we finish this event. I just need to type them up for you guys. So you
Were
can
the
see it
last-
yourselves.
So the previous Orcust decks we looked at were on Double Mermaid. This one was on Single Mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, I know you've gone over to the Double Mermaid life. Is that a significant consideration in deck building?
So this has actually got quite a lot of stuff very different to my extra deck in here. I have never played a Hayate in my life. Never.
She don't own an LT.
Yeah, is that also a consideration? But
What
yeah,
is
I've
the
been...
Hayate for? Is it just for attacking under mine? Yes.
I assume it's
If
if you open engage or drones, you send the sided jamming waves, and you MST,
But then you still have to get to
but you haven't used your normal summon yet.
yeah.
So you get to search an MST and then normal summon and then Phoenix. So it's just against Striker.
So really bad Twin Twisters.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
more
'cause
of a Twin Twisters than you have.
If it were for time, you'd just play the Kaina,
Sure.
where you get to you engage drones, add back engage, make your Kaina, and then activate the engage.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but slightly more back on topic. The Mermaid. I have actually found relatively few games that I resolved the second Mermaid, so it's definitely coming close to being cut. The list there is playing a lot more Orcust cards and ways to find it than mine. So if your first play gets shut down, you're far more likely to be able to find your way back to a harp for your second turn.
Yeah, if you play the wand and multiple
Yes.
harps. Yeah.
The list that I've been using is absolutely bare minimum Orcust engine, so it's really important that if you don't get your way into the Orcust engine straight away, that you have another Mermaid to get you straight back into there. I can definitely agree that you wouldn't need a second Mermaid in that particular list.
True.
Right.
So I think
We've done the dash.
we're happy to move on to just covering general questions and answers. So the
should we
first
go back to
question
the
from Austin, was it?
Yes.
I think this is a really good one. Do you want to read it out?
How do you guys handle preparation for events? I always tend to do fairly well through the first half, but lack of sleep catches up to me and it affects my play. Any tips? Well, I think you've sort of answered your own question there. There are a lot of people that don't respect how you need to look after yourself to do well at events, and it does make a very big difference. Particularly more so in recent years, I've made a very big deal about what I eat, what I drink, when I sleep, how I use my time between rounds, just all to try and put myself physically in the best position to do well throughout a long event, because it'll get to the round 8, round 9 even, towards the end of day 1, and your opponents will just let you win sometimes because they make plays that they definitely wouldn't have made at the start of the day because they're completely flagging at that point. So certainly late on in the day, last couple of rounds day 1, and if you're going really far in the tournament, throughout the entirety of Top Cut, there's actually a significant step up in the number of misplays that people make, both because of the pressure in the single elimination stage. Sometimes it's feature matches, adds another layer of pressure. And when you combine that with exhaustion, people can make a small mistake, get very tilted, not live with it very well because they're in a really bad mental state, like you say, for lack of sleep. And yeah, if you look after your body properly, you can be in a much better position to not spiral down on a small mistake and let things get worse. So yeah, I feel like a lot of that is answering your own question and making sure that you sleep well, but also nutrition as well.
Yeah, I think if you're a person that eats a regular 3 meals a day, has a solid breakfast and lunch every single day, then I don't see why Saturday of a big event should be any different. Like, you need food, and if you're going to be playing games until literally 10 p.m., 11 p.m. on the Saturday, then you're going to need proper sustenance. And
yeah, I mean, this is one of the things a lot of people ask, kind of like, why would you be part of a team? What are the advantages? Like, when we went to the German Open, this was something that we were really considerate about, was like anybody who had free time would check with the others and get food or water and make sure that those are available, because it's really hard to stay like focused and not kind of fatigue during events. And getting access to just the kind of vital resources like that makes a massive difference. Particularly from like a perspective of like judging events and seeing what players are doing, you can see a lot of people decline as the rounds go on, and that's when people start getting the game losses for procedural errors stacking up and things like that. So it's definitely really important.
Okay, so we've had a couple of other questions as we're coming through here. One that I think Seb might be best placed to answer is, how do we feel is Striker stacking up best? Hand traps or no hand traps, and first or second?
So Striker's in a really weird position at the moment where the best build of Striker depends really heavily on how many other people are playing Striker, and also what build of Striker they're playing. So I have about 5 different Striker lists built. In like at least theoretically.
You wear them on a belt, like Bastion, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Just like, which Striker deck will I play today?
Exactly. I've got like.
Are you familiar with the Bastion picture?
Yeah, this is
okay,
this is anime stuff. But yeah, and so
more Striker lists
basically,
than friends.
So there are a couple of factors. One, how many other Striker decks just total are in the format?
Is that right?
If there aren't a lot of
this is very important.
If there aren't a lot of Striker decks in the format, then mine is better. So mine isn't very good against Salad, but it is like quite good.
Like it's not have many outs to it.
Yeah, but they have Foxy and stuff, so they have like some inherent outs if you have a monster on board. Like you can play around that, and it's very good, but it's not like broken. So you're totally fine just not playing mine if everyone else is on Striker. But if everyone else is on Orcust, then you really want to be on mine.
It is the best card in your deck.
It is literally the best card in your deck.
The questions are about hand traps, though.
Yeah, but hang on, I'm getting to that. But there are a lot of considerations. So you have the mine versus no mine.
Just like the pie charts and the numbers.
Hand traps. I don't think hand traps generally are particularly good. But I actually think you play more hand traps at the moment because there's no pendulum. You play more hand traps if you're choosing first than if you're choosing second. Because if you're choosing second, you can play like the more jamming waves and the shark cannons, which by the way are really good interaction to Orcust boards.
The point with going second is that you're able to get your 2-for-1s, which you can't going first, and that's why the hand traps are so important going first.
Yeah. So like, I think Marcello's build playing like no hand traps is perfectly fine because he's just gonna get all the advantage of like actually resolving afterburners and jamming waves.
But again, when we see the shift to evenly matched being very popular, then suddenly like I would be less inclined to be on going second Striker because like you don't have pressure to kill your opponent generally.
Yeah.
If they somehow set up turn 1 through 0 hand traps in a way that lets you Boral Sword them, like something very wrong has happened.
If they've made a link 2 at some point, it's very very good. You can never Boral Sword them on your first turn.
Yeah, exactly. So it means you're very prone to evenly. And so like if all of your interaction is spell cards, that would be something that I would be concerned about.
So I like currently, like, my sort of positioning is I'd be on choosing first striker with at least Ash, probably also impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
But if everyone else is on choosing second striker, then I might be on striker choosing first with Ash and 3 Shed Ride in what would have been impermanent slots. Because Shed Ride is also good against Salad, so you're literally only losing out against Orcust. With no Mine. But Mine is obviously really, really good, and it's just one of those things where you may as well be playing Mine if there are enough people on Orcust.
Like, realistically, your 55 cards are going to be the same regardless.
Yeah,
it's just
this is the thing.
Which ones you want in your main and which ones you want in your side.
Yeah, like, most of them will be the same. The only thing that's going to change is...
You probably won't side, like, Ash.
Yeah, like, you're not going to side Ash. So if you're playing Ash, you're maining it, but other than that, like, everything else is somewhere in your list.
Okay, next up we have what do I think about Mathematician in the Orcust deck. Personally, not the biggest fan. I've tried in my current list to keep normal summons to an absolute minimum.
A maximum minimum.
Matt is a card that you've played a lot with, right? Like, it seems like a card that you can, like, just in general.
In general,
like,
in life,
career in
yes,
general.
I've played a lot of Mathematician. I think that the card is good, but I don't think that it is the normal summon that you want at the moment. As it stands, my Orcust list has got absolute minimum number of normal summons, got the 3 connectors and the rotor, and then aside from that, it's pretty much just Candina, but you have 6 cards that can let you see that Candina. So effectively a total of 10 normal summons at that point. But it's very rare that you'll see them in multiples, because only 4 of them are actual hard-drawn normal summons. The others are just ways to get you to that normal summon to take +1 if you don't have another way to get there. It's probably less good going first than a deck with Mathematicians, but I think that the deck needs more help going second rather than going first. So, as with a lot of the decisions in my deck building, it's driven by what can I build to be able to beat through a turn 1 setup rather than what gives me the best plays on my opening turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think we discussed this last week about gold fishing, where it's like, sure, when you're just testing hands, you play the Mathematician and you do good stuff, but when your opponent's actually playing Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, that might not actually be the case.
Okay, well, thank you, Nelson, for that question. Next up is a question that I don't understand particularly if it's in reference to something, but Shibal asks, what do you guys think about Dynamiscus, so the Paleozoic trap, in Salamangreat? Have we been seeing that anywhere?
Yeah, we have. That's been quite popular.
It's tech from the OCG that has started kind of creeping into lists over here. It just gives them more interaction, lets you get guys into the graveyard as well.
So it's in this like perfect middle zone where it's a main deck out to mine, it's a main deck out to multi-roll, and in the mirror it can be a blowout just hitting their normal summon because it doesn't destroy or send to graveyard. So it kind of covered, and it's also just a generic good going first set my trap interaction for your like Orcust stuff. So it kind of just fills this weird niche situation that Salad really need, just because their main deck, as we say, is very tight. The first 35-ish cards are just relatively well set in stone. So a lot of people are moving towards Dynamiscus as the tech kind of Twin Twisters versus Cosmic versus something else slot, just because it's a card that's good at going first and a card that solves all of the individual problems that you need to solve in this meta. So it's kind of positioned very well. The only thing I don't like about it is it's a trap card, and Salamangreats already have this issue where going second is really tough if your opponent didn't lose to your hand traps. So it not being able to be just a Cosmic Cyclone or Twin Twister on the Orcust field spell, or for your opponent's Salamangreat counter trap or what have you, does make it significantly worse, obviously going second. But against Striker, it's infinitely better than any of the alternatives, just because it can hit anything you needed to hit, and banishes, which is very relevant, and can trigger your Gazelle on your opponent's turn. Does a lot of nice things. The one thing I will say against it though, in OCG, for some reason, Salamangreats don't play Signet Mining at all. Maybe they play one of it, but it's just not popular there at all. people just don't want to lose to Ash, which is strange because they only have 2. So they don't have nearly as many extenders for their Salamangreats. So in the Salamangreat mirror, if you go normal summon and the opponent banishes your normal summon, then you do actually just lose 99% of the time. So it's weird, but it's a perfectly viable tech law. So
it's a very interesting card, and I think we will see it a lot going forward. Shebal asks, will I be doing coverage at German Nationals? No, I will be there as a player. All the German Nationals coverage will be in German, which I unfortunately don't speak, so sorry about that. But I will be on coverage soon. Not sure if I can talk about what exactly yet, but we will announce it on the team.
I feel like I would be the only TKB who might be able to provide German coverage.
Wait, is this?
I could do coverage for German Nats. I just do it all in English because they all speak English there.
Was it announced?
But the coverage is in German.
Oh, was that announced?
Yeah, that was announced.
Okay, yeah, I'll be at UK Nationals doing commentary with Marcello, which will be great.
It was announced.
Very much looking forward to it. I don't know what's announced at this point. We've already discussed hand traps with going second striker, and I think it's very much like between going first and going second. You pick whichever one you think is stronger. Whatever you think tackles your meta better. So the next question that I would like to look at is Sebastian wearing a Bastion cosplay to Euros? And I think the answer is definitely yes.
It's not a cosplay, it's just his life.
He's gonna play.
So, yeah, I happen to have, of course, the name as well, which is just perfect.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Next
question.
Don't next one, but
next question.
It's just happening. So we've skipped over a few questions, and if we have time, we will get back to them. But this one is quite interesting, I think. So Santiago is asking, do we have a theory on why full combo decks like Pendulum or Thunder Dragon aren't performing as well as Salamangreat, Orcust, and Striker? So I'm going to start off with my points, and then I'll let you guys hop in. So from my point of view, the way that combo decks work in the current format, if we compare it back to Goki format, which was the last very big combo format, so the power level difference between the kind of soft combo decks like Orcust is not that big. So like Pendulum ends on a board of a bajillion negates. That
Mucho negates.
Many negates.
12 negates.
Turn 0 every time.
It's all Alex says to himself. It's just, but like with the Orcust stack, you generally end on a board which prevents everything anyway.
It's big enough.
Yeah. And so the full combo decks, they just are too all in. Would be my interpretation as to why we've seen them fall off. And also Thunder Dragon just loses to mine.
Yeah.
It's just like,
hard.
Loses to mine, loses to the finals.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also think the thing is, so yeah, Thunder Dragon just loses to mine. Pendulum doesn't have that problem, but what Pendulum does have is that it can never beat Orcus going second.
Yeah.
Like, it can never beat the other combo decks going second. But yeah, I think Pendulum is the scariest striker matchup for striker, so like that is a consideration.
Oh yeah, if everyone will go in second striker, then
Pendulum becomes very good.
6 negates. You got 6 cards there, buddy.
Yeah, don't go so
well. Do you have anything to add to that, or
not particularly?
We've basically covered it.
And Orcust as a soft combo deck can play through interaction better than the all-in combo deck.
Orcust has a much better going second.
Orcust is just super versatile.
Yeah, like it can play its own hand traps. It plays real traps and other interaction if your combo doesn't resolve. Just
it's kind of like doing that. It's just you have like really easy ways in. Joe McMahon says this is going to be his first Nats, and he's aiming for top 128. What do we think the record for top 128 will be? It'll probably be somewhere between X2 and X3. So
UK.
I think we are
X3.
Yeah. So
we'll be locked on a 10-round event.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that you'd be absolutely safe for making top 128 on 7-3.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's probably going to be some people on 6-3-1 will be there as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know for sure. We don't know the numbers, but that would be what I'd guess.
Yeah. And best of luck at the event. If you see us there, feel free to pop by and say hi. So a question for Tom from Horlin. What's your thoughts on the Ib and Guard Dragon combo before going into the Orcust plays?
So I've looked at quite a lot of things like that, both the Guard Dragon and Predaplants, as being things that you can play to force your opponent to use their interaction, their hand traps, before you go to your Mermaid. Every time I'm like, oh, this seems so great. Like, they're just some really solid starters that build so much advantage. And then every time I'm like, but what happens if I have to go second?
Yeah.
And suddenly it's all normal summons or garnets that aren't helping me break through the board. The list that I've put together at the moment is based around having the best chance of having like at least 4 live cards in my hand if I'm playing second into a setup. So when you're playing against the 3 standard decks at the moment, Strikers, Orcusts, and Salamangreat, they all put up about 2 or 3 pieces of interaction. If you have 4 cards to play into their 2 to 3 pieces of interaction, you've got a great chance of breaking through and being able to do your full combo even when you're going second. So I would prefer to absolutely minimize the number of garnets that are in my deck. That's why I'm playing such a small Orcust package, and just have versatility to play well regardless of who's playing first.
It goes back basically to our previous point of you don't need to be all in. The normal Orcust combo is big enough to
don't go full
win.
combo unless you need to go full combo.
Never go full combo.
Unless you want to combo.
So we have a question from London Paperclip, who had actually been talking to us last week.
Okay.
I believe London Paperclip is TO, and they're asking, how do you deal with a player who is suspected of slow playing, and how important is it to prepare for time? So this is an interesting question. I think it's important both as a TO and as a player to understand what to do in these situations. So first off, it's important to differentiate. Slow play and stalling are 2 very different things. So from the judge and organizer perspective, it's important that when these issues arise, you have to look and see, like, there are 3 possibilities. Either A, the player is playing slowly and not aware of it. There can be multiple reasons. We've mentioned fatigue already, where like the later you get into the event, the slower the players are going to be. Additionally, it could be a player who is unfamiliar with their deck or unfamiliar with their opponent's decks. Now, obviously, you are expected to know your cards and you are expected to be relatively familiar with the format, but at the same time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very complex game. Particularly early in the game, you have a lot going on. As you get later into a match, it's generally, I would expect players to start playing more quickly as the game state simplifies. But yeah, so there's no like hard and fast rule from my point of view. And I'm definitely by no means the best person at catching slow play. But from a TO perspective, it's a case of being familiar with the decks can let you know a lot about whether or not somebody is taking more time than they reasonably should. At locals and stuff, it's something that I'd be more inclined, for like relatively small locals, I'd be more inclined to just kind of talk to players after the event and be like, okay, I need you to be playing more quickly. As the kind of value of events increases, then you need to be stricter on it. Preparing for end of match procedure, particularly on the higher tables, are where it's important to watch for slow play, whether you're a player or a judge. If you think your opponent is slow playing, you should call a judge over. Unfortunately, at large events, there are rarely enough judges to properly check for slow playing, and it's always kind of a difficult issue. The best thing to do as a player is always to ask your opponent politely, can I ask you to progress to game state? It's really important, again, as you get later in the day, to be very non-hostile with people, because everybody's super tired. Like, even the judges are going to be super tired because they've been walking about for like 7 or 8 hours at this stage. So
I think that the fact that you have to raise the point of being non-hostile sort of highlights an issue with the culture of judge calls in Yu-Gi-Oh! I would always be of the inclination that absolutely you want to be polite to your opponent, but if you suspect that they are slow playing, intentionally or otherwise, you call a judge, you explain what's happening, you get your time extension so that like if they think yes there has been slow play here, they can give you those extra minutes so that you still get to play the full round. And if your
time
opponent
extension is very important.
Yeah.
If you're-
Always remind a judge to give time extension if they forget.
if your
Or even
opponent
its minimum.
isn't serially slow playing, then they're only going to get a warning. And I think that there's a culture in the game at the moment where people feel like getting a warning is their opponent doing something malicious against them. But
A judge
if
call
you-
is an accusation.
yeah, if you as a player aren't doing something wrong, then you shouldn't be getting multiple warnings for the same
Yeah.
things. And if you're only getting one warning for something, then that's fine. That is just a
That's the
part
purpose of the warning
That's
system.
what warnings are for, so that
Exactly.
to
So
give you that.
warnings are there to maintain the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
It's just so happens that if they build up, penalties are applied to
Yeah.
players
Yeah.
because like it has to be tracked somehow.
Yeah. And if I think that there are a lot of infractions like slow play where there are players who may be stalling who get away with it because there isn't a culture of calling judges and saying, I think there's been some slow play. And if a warning gets handed out, you have a warning. That's not a problem. But if we as a player base didn't view it as something hostile, we accepted that sometimes the judges get called, sometimes you'll get a slow play warning. Like I've had some slow play warnings and like I'm like, okay, yeah, I probably was playing a bit slow there. I need to pick it up and I'll make sure that I play better and play quicker for the rest of the day. And I think that that's an important part of the game, but I also there have been tournaments where there have been people that have many times they've had opponents who think that they're not playing quickly enough and there's a lot of like a fuss about it, but judges just don't get called.
Yeah.
And so the people that might actually be stalling aren't being penalised in any way.
I definitely had that situation personally where like I just decided not to call a judge and I was like very frustrated with myself. I think the last time was actually German Open. I might be wrong about when that was, but
from my point of view with judges, like I have called in this competitive season, I have called judges on myself more than I have called it on opponents, because the game state has to be maintained, like, and so like if you mess up, like, it is both players' responsibility to fix the game state, and the judges facilitate that. So like there are certain times where an issue happens and both players catch it and just say, oh hey look, we'll just fix it ourselves because it's faster.
Yeah, it's usually immediately done too.
Realistically, if you want to ensure the least possibility of people abusing the rules of the event, then every single penalty should be tracked, because it allows you to find patterns. And as a TO or as a head judge, that's really important. Because it's no good if a judge comes over and says, oh, you're slow playing, you guys have an extra 3 minutes, but doesn't ever write down the warning. Like, so it's important that every part of the process is covered. And definitely, I think players don't call judges enough. And again, like, if you call a judge and you're waiting ages, like, once you guys start the judge call, agree to write down the time that the judge call is starting at. And that way, when the judge comes over, you're able to say, hey, look, this is when we called you. We've been waiting like 5 minutes. And more often, like, they pretty much always will say, okay, here's your additional time on top of that.
But it's very good to have it written down for that situation.
Yes. Yeah. Same reason why keeping life points written down is really important. Seriously, write your life points on paper. The amount of times, like,
It's
if you
also just
don't
a
have it
tournament
written on
policy.
paper, and I come over, and your opponent has it written down on paper, like, I will check the graveyards, but the policy sides with the person who has it written down.
This is a blanket.
It is against policy not to take your life points on paper.
We have lots to discuss about the policy, but we won't go fully into it. In
That
this
is its own
discussion.
video.
It's its own thing.
So yeah, I hope that covered what you were asking, London Paperclip. If not, again, if you want to discuss things in more depth, feel free to shoot us a message on the Facebook page, and we can discuss it there, because yeah, there's a lot of kind of depth to those kind of issues. We have a question for Seb.
Oh.
So Bodo says he played against you at German Open with Atlantean Orcust.
Yes.
And he says, would you like to test with him? He needs more striker opponents. We don't do much testing online.
Yeah. So
if you happen to be at like UK Nationals and want to test, then he'll be about. But
no, I will not be able to test at UK Nationals. I'm judging UK Nationals.
You'll have time, like in the evenings.
Yeah.
It is after German Nats.
Yeah. I am currently in the middle of exam period. This is like my day off because it's a bank holiday. But I have 2 exams this week, and I have 4 exams next week, and I have one more the week after that. Like one more the week after UK Nats, but I'm kind of ignoring it because it's just one.
Mentally done.
Yeah, mentally finished by UK Nats. So for me, I'm not going to be doing much testing at all. If I get like a break, I sometimes take it by playing on like Dueling Book and stuff. But realistically, I don't have time to like plan testing because it's just when I get a break from revision and like actually like real life things.
Plan procrastination.
I am a final year at university, so for me it's
a lot of the testing happens here in this
room.
Like,
a lot of it happens in this room.
We're not very technological.
Or the
also
Facebook chat.
The Facebook chat. We theory a lot, but we don't actually get to test as much as we.
I don't think I've played a game online this year.
Yeah.
But like putting the stream together is like height of our technical prowess.
And we all know how that's going.
It's fine. It works now. I hope the sound is okay, everybody.
Yeah, I do indeed remember the Atlantean Orcust match where my opponent made just drew an extra card accidentally, got the game lost, and still managed to completely destroy me in both games 1 and 3. So it just didn't matter. That was a very one-sided match.
So Adam Sullivan asks, going into UK Nationals, how important is it to create a side deck which targets the top decks, Orcust, Striker, and Salad, or should you be covering a variety of decks? At the start of this format, we had a very diverse format, and I do think that realistically you can play a lot of decks and have potential to top. Like, you can play your True Dracos, you can play your Mindburns, and like you can legitimately top the big Nationals with them. Yeah. Like, I would be very surprised if we didn't see some of those sneak into top decks.
Especially Draco. I'd be very surprised to see 0 Draco.
So I definitely would be leaning towards covering Orcust, Striker, and Salad. A lot of the things that hit them are generically good against other decks anyway.
Like, you're going to have your back row removal, you're going to have your Pancratops, you're going to have your evenly matched, that kind of ballpark. You'll have some combination of those cards, hand traps, just generic ghost ogres and stuff. So you realistically should have coverage for most matchups.
I don't be in a position now where evenly matched is good against everything.
I think evenly matched is
probably not good against Salad.
It's not good against Salad, yeah.
But everything else.
But you just always blind MST their counter trap.
And then you have the evenly afterwards,
There's nothing left to evenly, and you just burn your battle phase.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, but, so I think there aren't any decks in the format, even amongst the rogue decks, that you'd really want specific side for, with the exception of Pendulum, where you might be siding your spare modes just for Pendulum.
Yeah, or Ghost Ogres.
Yeah, or like Ghost Ogres. So like that was my kind of consideration when I built my side for when building side decks is I might play my 3 spare mode just because I am super afraid of Pendulum because it's a super bad matchup for Striker. But otherwise, the other 12 cards in my side deck are definitely cards that should just be good in a variety of matchups because of the way the format is.
And like there are 3 very different decks at the moment, which will realistically make up sort of 50% of the room, or 50% of the matchups you expect to play if you want to go do well in the tournament. So having 4 or 5 cards dedicated to each of those matchups is relatively important. So I'd imagine most of your side deck should be going in against big 3.
I am always professional. Steve Lau asks Tom, in what order would you rate the Orcust extenders from Trickstars, Strikers, Dangers, and Instant Fusion? And then he has Saw's Destrudo, which I mean is effectively including a Destrudo in this list.
So I think Trickstars and Strikers.
Engage is going to be.
Yeah, Engage has to be the best one because it doesn't use any.
You drew a card off it recently, right?
You traitor.
Only I draw cards off Engage.
Alert.
Yeah, so it took me about a year after the release of Engage for me to draw a card from it.
Having owned Engage.
I bought them like when they were on release.
So, Tier 1 Strikers?
Yeah. So
Tier
this
1
is just-
Trickstars
This
as
is
well?
just extenders.
Extenders, yeah.
So I feel like Trickstars and Strikers are starter cards more than they are extenders.
Yeah.
Sure, just the engines that get you into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously Connector is like S tier for starters as well, but it's not an extender at all.
But then would you put Connector above Trickstars?
Or would you put Connector above Engage?
Initially, I would have put Connector above Trickstars, but recently I feel like the Trickstars have outperformed it just through how much
I would
back row
totally
has
agree with
crept into the format.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that Light Stage is so well positioned right now that
Yeah.
I genuinely would prefer to see Light Stage than Connector.
And like a lot of the time, Light Stage will get its extra value even through just about anything that your opponent can throw at it.
Yeah.
So I think Trickstars is probably like the strongest engine in that deck right now. Dangers and Destrudo, which I feel like Destrudo just functions as extra dangers. They work very nicely simply because your compo is always going to discard at least one card, and having something which doesn't lose you any advantage for being discarded, like it's great. You always want to have at least one card that gets value off being discarded.
But as individual cards, they are not as good as Light Stage or Connector or Engage.
Instant Fusion, I played very briefly. Didn't think much of it. The extra deck's pretty tight. I'm not a fan of the Winder build, and the nature of the combo means that you can't summon a Millennium Eyes Restrict before you go into your Mermaid, so I don't think there's a huge amount of value in it right now.
For thoughts on Window, we discussed it last week in the TKB Live, so if you want more direct look at that, we went into it there. We are coming up to the end. We only have 10 minutes left, so we're going to try go relatively fast with the last few questions. Haloran asks, what is our opinions and thoughts on the viability of gnome material? We discussed this last week, I believe, and it was a case of it wasn't well positioned in the format. It's probably becoming better positioned in the format, as we've seen Draco and mine definitely top less. But I still wouldn't be crazy about the card because
Too much
I think Phantasme is quite nice due to the fact that it draws into the things. Like, Phantasme progresses my plan of doing my combo on the following turn if I'm playing hand traps.
I also just think Gnome is really bad against Striker because if like half the time they don't even make the Kagari anymore because
they just go
because
Shizuku
they need to
go.
save it, and then they've just made Shizuku and you're
I'd assume this is just as a side card.
yeah.
I think at the moment, Gnome is in a weird position because the only deck you want it for is Orcust, and Lancia is almost strictly better in the Orcust matchup than Gnome. Like, hypothetically, Gnome is the hard, I will stop your turn guaranteed, you can't even audible into Bardiche or anything. But Lancia you can play when you are going first, and you can also side against Thunder, and it also helps you not get blown out by evenly matched.
And also it's good past turn 1.
Yeah, and it is good past turn 1.
And if you're playing first.
Good off of Phantasme, yeah. So Lancia has a lot of, like, I'd say minor individual uses, but add together to make it just a more rounded card in the current meta as a side card for Orcust. So I don't realistically see Gnome ever replacing Lancia, and at that point it just becomes a question of, do you want to add more dedicated cards to your side for the Orcust matchup?
If we see a very restrictive extra deck summon mechanic come in the next
Set of releases.
set of releases, as in like once we finish our Link season, then Gnome could suddenly spike.
Yeah.
Like,
See, Gnome material though, it
It stops summoning from
specifically
extra
lists
deck, right?
Nope.
what it can be
Oh,
used
oh,
for.
does it?
It
Oh
will
no,
not
it's
be-
a dimension
It's a
barrier.
dimensional barrier
Yeah, it's
in
dimensional.
that it will suddenly not hit everything.
Because
once you
I
get
thought
any extra deck.
Phantasme was our dimensional barrier for this format. It's definitely a card to watch, no material, but I wouldn't be considering it over the other hand traps at the moment. Atreyu, is that the name of the character from the land or the?
Good band.
It's the Neverending Story, I think.
We are
I
talking about
don't
two
know.
different
I
things.
Anyway,
Stop trying to throw culture.
what's your opinions on Artifact Sanctum and Sight in Salamangreat, particularly mained? I think this is a really interesting question because the Artifact package was really scary back like February. March, and I've not seen it in ages. And I think somewhat the discussion we had earlier with the combos, where it's like so many of the decks just need to be able to play first and second at the moment. That the artifact package gets pushed out. It definitely can start seeing more play now because the format has settled and the kind of like big spooky mind decks and stuff that had been big problems have shifted out, but I'm not convinced.
So I wouldn't play it simply because the decks you want it against are the decks that are choosing first, right? So you have to win a die roll for it to be good. The only deck that's choosing second is Striker, and Striker has never really cared about Sanctum. Like you can literally just ignore
the
it.
current Striker lists are playing 3 shark cannons.
Triple shark
so
cannon.
if you activate Sanctum against them, they will kill you with your insight.
They're gonna lock you in.
So yeah, you just the only.
The other fact is like it hits Orcust really hard, but Lancia is a card.
Yeah.
I mean, you're typically just using it to search Lancia.
Yeah.
It's a card that is well positioned if you are going to win a lot of die roll. I know Raph and a bunch of the CCG guys,
ARG EU,
were really high on it during the Dusseldorf season because they thought it was very good going second as well as going first. And that is, it's not untrue. The awkward part about the current format is against Orcust, they typically set their counter trap on their opponent's turn, so that once they get back to their own turn, they have a counter trap ready for the Sanctum that you just set.
And the counter trap doesn't even destroy.
So it just banishes the Sanctum.
So it's not like in the Orcust matchup you can just let them resolve their field and then set Sanctum and then pass and you get 2 turns to try and break their board, because it just doesn't work like that. So it is now just a hard going first card.
Our friends at Team Mambo ask, "Hey guys, I have a question for Alec. What does it feel like opening double Stormbusters in round 2 of regionals? Thanks." What did you do?
Okay.
Was it Liam or Carl?
Carl.
Carl.
100%.
Okay, cool. Hi, Carl.
So I was playing Striker. This was a good format or two ago. I was playing Striker and I bricked really hard, but I'd opened the 2 heavy Stormbusters that I was making. So I go set 2, pass. And he's on True Draco, just pure Draco, all the floodgates, no extra deck. And he goes, I have also bricked really hard. Set 4. I go, end phase, pop your cards. And then, no, this gets better. So I then go, draw a card. My hand still didn't do anything. Set Twin Twisters. And he goes, draw a card. My hand also still didn't do anything. Set 2 more cards. Twin Twisters. And then I draw a Rain Come. So,
well done.
I was proud of me too.
This was like October.
So,
This is a while back.
Treyu also says Bulgarian Nats were won by Pendulum. Top 8 was 3 Salad, 2 Sky Striker, 2 Pendulum, and 1 Draco. You've not seen the deck list anywhere. If you know anybody who is there who might have the deck lists, if you want to send them on to us, we're happy to broadcast them out.
I actually think I have seen this deck list.
Right.
It was not dissimilar to mine. It was a slightly bigger Zephyr engine and not playing Magicians, if I remember correctly. But it was on the big make infinite negates kind of fun stuff.
Dawnlord HS, which I assume is Hearthstone.
Or it's a 60 card version.
Says Turkey Nats was won by Sky Striker with mine.
Get back.
Again, Pendulum, Draco, Orcust, Salamangreat. Those are the decks that we expect. Let's just check. Imagine Wagons is asking about Altergeist and Subterror.
Name.
Both. It's a good name. Both of the decks are like relatively solid at the larger Nats. I think you can top with them. But again, they're very much in the rogue portion. I'd be less hot on Altergeist and Subterrors.
They're a deck that doesn't kill you quickly and lose to mine.
There's also so much spell and trap removal that really hurts those 2 decks, whereas at the start of the format there was a lot less.
My issue with Geist in particular is that you have nothing to negate back row removal, so you will just lose to all of it. At least, like, the nice thing about Subterror is that they play Fiendus, so like they just have a negation for a piece of spell and tap card removal per turn, which is quite good.
Yeah. So we will take 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it a night because we are sleepy Kuribrohs. And
because we started at like 4 a.m. this morning.
It's okay. So Subaskomi7, I think that's your name, has a question, which I'm going to delegate to Alec.
Okay.
He's playing Pendulum, but game 1 pre-side, he has many problems playing through an Orcust post-full combo.
Yeah.
Aside from just breaking down and crying, what are your thoughts?
You just try and hold it in until after the match. That's about all you can do.
Yeah. So
the reason Orcust is a terrible matchup is because their full combo beats you just as hard as your full combo beats them. Like, you can technically God draw your way through it if they have nothing but Field Spell, Dingear, Suing Grave, 2 Fogblades. If that's all they have, then your really good hands can beat that, but you don't reliably beat the normal stuff, let alone if they have hand traps or anything else.
I mean, Pendulum suffers from being such a high synergy deck that it's really hard to change cards from your list.
Yeah.
Because you hit your consistency and you hit how well your deck functions really heavily. So I was going to go with the hand trap question from Imagine Wagons, but we've already done one of your questions, and it's probably like Ogre.
What, best hand trap?
Yeah.
Ash.
Ash.
I mean,
Ash is the best hand
Ash
trap.
is like most
Impermanence.
playable. Impermanence is actually really strong.
So, yeah, this is one of the things I was looking at in Striker. I think Ash is the one that
have you seen this list?
you would play.
No.
And,
Okay.
like, Impermanence is really bad, but it's also the same.
So we're definitely not going to answer that question.
Okay,
We
we're
just-
not-
Well, that's right.
Ash and Impermanence are definitely the most represented hand traps, and they're probably the right ones to be on. Tafin's question is Zephyra Heart. I feel like you're pushing an agenda, Tafin. If he doesn't,
I do like that his display picture is Typhoon.
Yeah, I do that.
Zarios,
which, by the way, in German is Typhoon, like, precisely.
Perfect.
Zarios asks, what do we think of the Blackwing that got top 4 at Finish Nats? We haven't actually seen the list. We have all played Blackwing at some point, I think. Lots of casual locals Blackwings.
Yeah.
So we would love to see the
I want a prize
list.
card with Blackwings.
Yeah, you want a Methodist with Blackwings, right? Anyway, we would love to see the list. If you shoot it over to us on Facebook, we will either do something about it this week, or else we'll talk about it TKB Live next week.
Yeah. What do we think of Blackwing deck that got top 4 at Finish Nats?
Love it.
Nice.
It's great, just because Blackwings.
Thank you all very much for joining us. We did a cube video earlier today. We did 4 hours of cubing. So if you don't know what cube is, feel free to check that out. We explained it a few times during that, and we have 3 rounds of gameplay. We get some really odd decks. Not our finest moment of cubing, but it was a lot of fun, and we will be looking to do more gameplay stuff going forwards. We might even do a special cubing event at Euros on the Sunday evening. We'll have to see how
European
logistics
Cube
are.
Championships,
European
episode
Cube
2.
Championships, episode 2. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's something I really enjoyed doing. Came over specifically for it. But yeah, thank you all very much for joining us. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube. I will be posting those lists once I have them finished from Polish Nats to the Facebook. And we will either see you at German Nats, or Irish Nats, or UK Nats, or the European Championship, hopefully. Cool. Have a lovely evening, guys, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
And we're still lying at the moment.
Run. Go down. Hide the shame.
Bonus content. Whoa.